Hello everybody, Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan Living Life with Purity. And today I want to talk a little bit about how the media is reporting that there's a movement of young men returning to church, primarily the Catholic Church. Young men in their 20s are coming back in larger numbers, and I think part of the reason that they're seeing an influx of young men coming in is because there hadn't been that many to begin with. It's typical in many lifestyles that young men will stay with the family going to church until they go to school or things like that, or they get emancipated. And then typically young men will drift away. And this is not uncommon. This is kind of the natural path for most guys without being prompted to by the wisdom of a woman, that being their mother, or the family dynamic. They will typically fall away for extra hours of sleep and just to be able to, be left alone, type of thing. They feel they've got enough and they can live with what they got, and they're comfortable in that. They don't feel pressured or obligated, and they haven't found that sense of belonging and community that usually is found more so in the female of the species than in the male. So the women are the social organizers. They're the ones that need to be part of a group. They have to have some sort of identity. Guys are a lot more solitary in their design. They're able to bear the brunt of loneliness or just being alone. They're not really lonely. They just don't want to be bothered by anyone else. They just want peace and quiet and rest, and because they got to go to work then the next day. So the media is reporting that there's a lot of people, young men, going back to church. And why are they going back to church? Well, a lot of them are probably missing what gravity they had when they were younger and the formation that they had and the sense of boundaries and the confidence that gave them about good, right, wrong, those types of things, evil, these types of things. So in this world right now, it's really hard for them to sort of filter out, the bad stuff as easily as it may have once been because of the peer pressure to sort of obey the flow of the crowd and things like that going on. But young men, I think, are beyond that. I think they're kind of tired of the charades and being lied to and pushed down and told that they really don't matter and that they suck. And this is kind of the battle cry that a lot of young women have put against them. So the guys are tired of it. They're not going to take the humiliation, the shutdown, the negative responses that they get from women all the time. Because keep in mind, women out there now are all looking for a strapping young man over 6 foot tall, making over $100,000 a year, fulfilling all these other, checklist type of things. So all the women are going after what turns out to be 0.016 of the population. So you've got 80% of the female population all chasing like 0.016 of the male population. So that's leaving a lot of guys out there who are under 6 foot tall, just like, what's the point? They're just going to shut me down. It's not going to matter. They don't want me. So what do? They go home to their Xbox, their box pizza, and a little bit of Pornhub, and they're good. And they don't seem to be hurting from the equation because all they're doing is building their own high regard for themselves. They are saying, I am not going to be a part of that. This is not for me. But they got lonely too. And they are getting lonely. And they want someone. They don't want someone just to have sex with. They want someone to come home and share their story with. They need an emotional bond as well. Not as much as women do, but men still need that as well. So everyone needs a little bit of mothering every now and then, a little bit of tender care, if you will. So the men are looking around and saying, well, I'm not finding him out in the regular places. The women are so angry. They're so affected. They're so triggered that I don't want any of that. But they remembered their beginnings back in church. And they say, wow, there were good people at church. I never had this kind of feeling when I was at church. So they're going back to church. They're going back to church to kind of recenter their emotions. And they're also going back to church to try to find someone. And they're looking for a girl out there who can think like they do, behave like they, are trained to do as far as their nature and those types of things, that aren't going to try to fight those things. That confuses guys so much, because guys don't typically bend that way that easily like women do. They're wired differently. Guys have a different socio sort of bond than women do. And this is why women always lead fads and things like that. So it's not the guys out in front doing the fads. It's the women that start these things. So because they're the social brain and all like that. So women are out there now, and they basically devalued themselves in the marketplace, because with the feminist movement and all like this, they've all said that it's my body, my choice. You can't tell me what to do, and I'm going to prove it to you. And so what the women have done is they've gone out there and they've tried to have sex with just about anyone they can, in numbers that you wouldn't believe. Looking through some of these files, there are women out there who boast of having over 5,000 sexual partners. 5,000 sexual partners. That's a lot, I think. Anyway, so 5,000 sexual partners is like the high end that I saw. But the typical norm reported by the women was about 30 to 40. And most sociologists say that women lie in these polls quite a bit, and that if you have 30 to 40s being reported, it's probably more like 90 to 100. And so they say you have to be very careful about these things and the self-reporting that's going on, because you really can't trust it, because even the women know that it's kind of bad what they're doing. But they can't stop themselves, because they think that that makes them powerful. And so they think if they stop doing it, the other girls around them are going to think that they're, weak, and they're not really women, and they can't be counted on. And so you have this whole tribe of thinking going on out there with these folks that is nothing but negative and nothing but destructive, not only to them, but to their potential for relationships and society at large, because everything has a cascading, extending effect. And so these women are out there banging their, brains out, sometimes as many as 4 or 5 times a day at work, reported, that they have what they call their roster. They'll have several men, guys that they like to hang out with for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. They get together, they know what they're doing, they do it, and they leave. No emotion, no other contact, says, hey, see you tomorrow. I don't see how any of this builds anything except digs a deeper hole in your emotional chasm. But women have done this so much, and then when they finally get to a point where they say, oh, I need to settle down and find a husband, they find out that they've given themselves and not contained their emotions in that experience so many times that now they can't connect with anybody. They can't commit to a guy who might be a good guy. They can't commit to a guy who's going to church and trying to make a positive influence. They can't commit and stay with it because they're too burned into the cycle of what feeds them is the conquest of another man. So they can't break that addiction, even when they say, till death do us part. And so right now you're seeing a really huge uptick in lengths or shortening of marriages, especially with their newly married. The guys are coming home. They're finding their women still on dating accounts. They're going out meeting guys during the day while they're at work, these types of things. Marriages are breaking up in the younger set very, very quickly, and way more than the 50% range. So as we all know, gay men, when they get married, they divorce at the rate of about 10%. Hetero couples, they're divorcing at the rate of about 50%. And lesbian couples are divorcing at the rate of 75%. So the more you add the women and their emotions into the mix, the higher the tendencies for disagreement and breakup. So this goes to the whole pool of women have been indoctrinated, since the 1950s or the Cold War, where they started off with that. And then it moved into what happened with the ERA and the Now movement in the 70s and things like that. All things that probably had to happen, but it had a bad effect. It had a bad cascading result that came out of it. And we're dealing with that now because we're dealing with the daughters of the mothers who went through this the first time, or even the grandmothers. So it's a real negative thing that's going on. So women have devalued themselves. They can no longer commit to anything because they don't really know what a commitment is. And older women who are heading the wall, as they say, 30 to 35, they're past their dating prime. I think that's funny. 30 to 35, you're past your dating prime. But in society, that's the case because men in their 20s are looking for women, and they're not looking for what they call the used cars out there. These women in their 30s and who have been out there motoring around the bars and knocking boots with anybody and everybody. Guys aren't interested in them. They say, yeah, you're fun to play with, but I'm not marrying you. You're not valuable. But you might be fun, but I'm not going to invest in you. And so women are finding this out very firsthand and very dramatically because guys are very strong about this. And this is part of the reason a lot of them are going back to church because they're tired of what's out there available in the society that they find through the normal channels. Men don't trust these used cars to change. So they're seeking quality elsewhere, and that's the church. And what is also going on with a lot of these young men who are also doing this, and it's not been reported, and it's kind of a side note to the whole thing, is guys have been hit with so many false paternity cases that they've been paying child support for children that aren't theirs. And there's a movement now going on in the country that there has to be a paternity test before a man is allowed to sign a birth certificate because they need to corroborate, not just because the woman says that's the father and the father says, yeah, I'm the father. Well, he may not know that she had 3 or 4 guys on the side along with him throughout this path. So guys aren't trusting the women. And the women are being told they have to pay up if they falsely charged a man with started collecting payments. And then they find out later on through a paternity test that this was not true. The women are actually getting convicted of these things for paternity fraud. It's a real thing, and it's a real wake-up call for women across the country right now that think that they can just go have sex, spend 9 months creating a baby, having the baby, and then all of a sudden they're going to live the rest of their life scot-free without having to work. That's over. And the young men are sticking up for themselves, saying, I'm not going to let you do this to me anymore. So what are they doing? How are they fighting back? Well, young men are freezing their sperm. They're freezing it several times. They like the plan. But anyway, they like the whole process because all they have to do is masturbate several times. They collect the fluids, freeze them, and then what's he do? He goes in and he gets a vasectomy because he is going to say, because the women invite you to have what they call raw sex, unprotected sex, no condoms, no other prophylactics and things like that, inviting the men saying, oh, I'm on the pill, it's okay, we can have it raw, I don't want any, condoms, because they like the feel of it. Fine enough. But the young men aren't going to get caught up in this, so they go in, shooting blanks, and if they get charged with a paternity, they know it wasn't me, and they're finding this out more and more, but men are having to do this as a defense, because they can't really control themselves to not have sex, so this is another way that they're going to go about it because they're not going to get excluded from the physical fun. We have really fallen, people. We have really, really fallen. So I don't know the answer to this, but I think there's a good trend that's starting here. And let's hope that with the rebirth that we're feeling today on Easter Sunday of 2026, with the renewal that goes with it, that maybe there's a chance for renewal with our young people in trying to center their attention onto quality, good things. In the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.